recording, and so today we are going to understand how basically I think that the trend of Nifty works. Basically, this is driven based on the backtest which I have done a few years ago, but I have not validated it now. But this worked for me pretty well, so I think I'll just give you how this is basically not to buy stocks. It's just to understand if Nifty is going to be bullish or bearish. Again, this is not any stock flip or index ETF buying things. It's just basically to understand if the market is bullish or bearish, just that. And it can consolidate, it can stay there for a long time. But ultimately, how do I do that? Understand just if it is bullish and it will remain bullish for some time, and the probability of it is less, but ultimately it might be greater than. When I'm not giving you any claims of my back test previously, but ultimately it has worked 70% of the time. But again, few years back, not now. Let's see how I have done that. Now, first of all, what we do is we have to understand EMA properly. EMA is exponential moving averages. What does that do? For example, if you see this big black line which is here, it's so the chart which we are taking is 2 hours chart first. That is, the entire decisions is being based on 2 hours candle. So each candle is 2 hours trading. Now, if I take 200 EMA, this means the exponential moving averages is accounting to around 400 hours, because it's 2 hours into 200 candles, so 400 hours of trading. But what happens with exponential moving averages is the importance is given to the latest average of close rather than the older version. That is, so here if you see EMA, I have taken the source as close, so only the closing time of the 2 hours is considered, and then it's the line with EMA, and then the smoothing line is 200. That is, there are two lines you can draw, but I have both are 200 here in this case. Now, what happens in this case is this is there. Now, 200 EMA is the base thing to understand if it is bullish or bearish. So let's say, in simple words, if it is above 200 it is bullish, and below 200 it's bearish. Simple as that. But when do I screen that it is going to turn and keep a watch on Nifty if it's going to be bullish? So this is one indicator which I am using is 10-20 EMA. This is to keep it extremely simple, that whenever the 10 EMA crosses the 20 EMA, that is the trend trading EMA, that is 20 hours of trading price of closing price is greater than the 40 EMA closing price. So that 40 hours of closing EMA price. So that gives us a clear thing that it has turned, the trend has turned, but it is still under bearish territory because it has not crossed 200. Now, since it has crossed above that, it can exist in a bullish territory. That's the simple way to define it. But how long will it sustain? That's a question to answer. Now, for this, we have to understand support and resistance clearly. Support and resistance are basically, let's go to weekly basis. So these are created based on how a proper stop or start of a trend has created. So let's say these are supports. These are resistance here. The upper bound to a price is called resistance, the lower price bound is called support. So this is a support, this is a resistance again, if you see here. And if you see now, here is a zone where it is confusing, because ultimately this has been a resistance here. When the trend has gone down, again this is acting as a support. You have to understand what are the sentiments of people and institutions and other organizations when this happens. What they do is they think in a broader sense. With all the stocks combined, what Nifty index is a combination of 50 stocks. It is weighted, the weightage is given based on the market cap and other things. Let's let's not go in depth of it, but ultimately it's a combination of all the stocks. Now, if the market thinks it's overvalued, they sell the stocks, and that is when the index falls. So that is where the last time the market has given the overall, so this gives us an entire picture of the market. So this is where the support exists, and this is where the resistance exists. This is where people are selling, this is where people are buying. So there is a conflict of interest between two people, ultimately, that is buyers and sellers. That is the entire sentiment between buyers and sellers. This gives us a good thing to predict. This is one of the ways to predict. After this, there are multiple ways, but this is one of the method which I have chosen. So apart from this, we can also understand not just by this, but also the trend of it. The trend already exists in EMA. If you see, EMA acts as a trend line wherever this is acting as a support, and even this one is acting as a massive support. If something comes here, it's basically acting as a last price of purchase, something like that. But what we have to consider here is basically whenever it's coming here, it's acting as support and going back. Now, what do we consider in the weekly chart? If we go to 2-hour chart now, we have to clearly understand how long will this trend sustain. That is the basis. So how we do that is basically go to the previous trend whenever this turn of events has happened, and observe what was the trend of that. So let's say here the trend has changed. This is a terrible way to understand trend. So this is one way. You can draw this however you want to. But ultimately, there is a basic understanding on the angle of trend and how long did it sustain. So now if we take this, if someone has to taken a decision, this would be a trend line. But if the bullishness has started here as a last support, so we can take this as a support, and then whatever bottoms are coming, so you can take this as a trend. And when did that trend end? The trend ended here somewhere. So what we can do is we can continue this line and take all the supports which have come in the way. So this trend has started here and there's no resistance here, and now it has sustained till here, right? Now the same, when did the since the resistance has come, there has been this resistance, and now the stock has come down like this. Now, till when can the trend contain? Again, this might be a new support if you see something like this in different timelines, but yeah, I'll take it like this because we are seeing in a 2 hours time frame. Now, when will this, how long can this sustain? Now we will draw all the supports and resistances here. These are two resistances which exist, but if we take a similar trend line here, if we can also take something called parallel channel and draw something like this similar line here, and the same line messed it up big time. Okay, so what we can do here is basically the same chart, but yeah, like something like this, right? So, and give it something like this. So now if you see this is the previous trend, this is the current trend. So how long can it sustain? Mid of September. This is how I basically understand the trend can sustain till September. Again, be extremely cautious that this is not a high probability thing. It can have a probability of 70%, but the remaining 30% is special events. Tomorrow the market can crash and this can break. This is not a good support. This might not be a good support when there is black swan events. So we have to be extremely cautious that don't take any trading advice or tip advice from anyone, and be cautious that the market can fall anytime. So this is how I see the trend, and it can sustain for next this thing till September, and it can consolidate for a longer time. So if I go further here, now if I go to the above trend, it's sustaining till the end of September, and then how long can it be in this zone? Now for that, what we have to see is this previous trend is what we have seen here. The same trend we are observing again and again. It has to break few supports. That is a strong support, all-time highs, It has to break that support to sustain this. If it doesn't, again it will consolidate somewhere here, and the price might act something like this and have another correction and then move up. So that can be the strategy, basically, to understand or predict. Again, these are not exactly how it might fall. Again, it might directly go up or directly fall down. So the probability of this is high. Not so high that it's recommended for buying ETFs or anything, but ultimately we have to understand here the probability is high for this sustained period. That too, I would say something like 60 to 70%, not high. Again, let me put, if someone is trying to buy options and the price can remain here for a long time and then go up. So if you keep buying options like that, and it can also remain like this and fall. So the probability is not so high that you can start buying options and lose your money. Be careful and trade with cautiousness and understand the trade completely. This is for this video is made for the people whom I know, but if someone random is watching it, I'm not responsible for your losses. Thank you.